gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. About 2 years ago, I was on the phone with a business consultant, a pretty well-known business consultant. I was excited to even be on the phone with them, and I was interested in their offer. I was interested, and it was a pretty big stretch for me. It would have been a huge stretch, actually, but I was really feeling it. I was feeling the connection. I was feeling the motivation, the inspiration. It was a leap financially, but it also felt like it might be the right decision. Actually, I said yes. I said yes when we were in conversation. But then actually we ran into some trouble getting my payment to go through without me having to call the bank first. And then I was in a different time zone. So we were going to follow up later, and that actually gave me the chance to back out. And, part of me is glad because it wasn't, you can always look back and say, if this, then this might have happened. But also I've been pretty happy with where I was on my journey and what I needed to learn, I think, to really step into this new spot that I'm at, where I'm upgrading my business, upgrading my life, upgrading myself, right? Anyway, I remember in that moment of making the decision, I caught like a little whisper or a little thinking thing come through that was like, oh my God, my partner would freak out if he knew how much this was. And what's crazy is we actually kept our money separate. So it wasn't even his money, but just the idea of him knowing how much I spent on this I caught that was something that I thought about and factored into my decision. And that's when I realized how much I was keeping myself held back to accommodate others around me. And spotting this one thing was a game changer. I knew I had a tendency to accommodate others. It wasn't like a shock. And to definitely put others' needs before my own. But I started to see all of the places that I lied to myself about what I really wanted to maintain the status quo, right? To avoid upsetting someone, or because it felt safer than to say what I needed or wanted, right? And it's like, oh, but like I already have it pretty good and I don't want to lose that. So instead of growing, I'll just maintain this, which actually won't allow me to ever be happy, fulfilled, or self-actualized, right? And often when we're accommodating, it's not just accommodating those that are around us and what we think they need, but we are accommodating others based on what we think we're supposed to look like and be like. We think to have integrity, we aren't supposed to want things. But integrity includes desire. You got to make friends with sacred desire. And the clearer you are about what you want, the more aligned your life will be. That means being happier. It means better, more fulfilling relationships. That means more money, or the right amount of money. Some of us actually need to take a step back, and that's scary. That's also very scary when we know we need to do something that would make us happier, but the change is scary. And the more you honor your own needs, the more aligned other people can also be. So when you do what you need to do to truly make you happy, it will spread. It will affect the other people in your lives. They will also become more happy. They will also be more lined up with doing what they should be doing and living the life that's best for them. Of course, I should mention here, it isn't always about, it isn't about like, I just want money or I want to be the boss. Right? Sometimes we're afraid to ask for what we want because we worry it'll make us the bad guy. We worry if we put ourselves first, then we're being selfish. Yeah, I mean, it's taught to most of us as kids. And that if we do put ourselves first, then what we're actually doing is abandoning others who need our help. But you aren't being selfish. You're being centered in yourself, right? And that's what we're here for, to be in our center, to be aligned, right? And let me just add a little piece about alignment also. So when I say alignment, to me, it means the place where what you're actually available to do and to be also matches what the community needs. When I say alignment, I'm thinking compassionate manifesting. I don't feel like I probably need to explain this to our audience, but just so it is said, of course, it's not like desire, like, oh, well, I want new boots, right? This is where we can go back to, what we talked about in our very first episode and getting behind your why, the higher purpose desires, right? So, yeah, if there is one thing that you can do right now to get closer to the result that you want, it's to stand clear in your desire. We tend to hide them or make them smaller. Like, all I really want is to pay my rent and pay for my car and keep food on the table. Like, yeah, I've felt the struggle of like, even that would be so incredible. But like, is that all you really want? That really? That's the end? Right? Another thing that we do is we sort of half ask for what we want, but then we do it in a way where it's only because I'm trying to help other people. Right? It's like, oh, well, I want to have a retreat center so that I can help people, which is true, but like, that's only part of the dream. Like, why else do you want that retreat center? Is it because maybe you want to be an amazing healer? Is it because you want to be seen, in your spirituality? Or maybe it's just because you want to live in a really beautiful place and eat like fresh, good food, right? Like, you got to ask for all of it, right? Yeah. And so it's like, I'm still working through this. Like I can see when I want certain things, but I'm really afraid to say them because it'll look like I'm selfish. So what I actually say instead is what I think is acceptable to say instead of what I really want. And yeah, it's a little bit of a dance here too, to get good at this practice. So I just wanted to share some tips with you today about it, about the first thing you can do to get closer to your goal, is getting clear on that desire. And it's a practice. Oftentimes when we say, what do you want? Like, if you could imagine your best case scenario, what also happens is a lot of people picture, like being on a tropical island and not having to work at all, right? Here I am, I live in paradise. But that's also like mimicking what we think we want or what we're supposed to want instead of what we actually want. So let your imagination go, Let yourself really dig deep and feel what you most want. And maybe it is paradise and just like laying back, but I don't mind some trips and some vacations, but that's not what I actually want. I really like being engaged with people. I love my work. It fulfills me. I'm okay. I like working, in that capacity. Yeah. But yeah. So that's another tool that I recommend using is when you're playing with getting clear about what you want, first start to tune into what comes forward And then imagine yourself in that state for a long period of time. This is a really good way to identify if it's real or not for you. Like if that's what you really want. Would you really be happy doing this? Right? And of course, your dreams can change over time, and they will, but you got to start with what excites you the most right now. And part of the balancing act here is not asking for too little, but also not asking for too much, right? So there's on the other side, there's a way that we can be like, oh, I know what I want. I want $1 million. Right? But we actually don't want that, or we do, but we're saying something that's so far out of reach that it's actually kind of a joke to us. It's like, oh, I know what I want. I want all this money. But you're only saying this also to kind of hide. It's like it's so far out of reach of the beliefs that you currently have that it's a way of hiding or diminishing what you really want as well, right? You're not actually saying the truest thing for you. You're saying what is like socially acceptable and funny. And a piece here that has really helped me begin to open this practice up more for myself is to remember that it's not actually about getting what you want. It's about asking for what you want. That's what wants to come out. And that's what leads you down the path. And the clearer, the better. This is how life dances with us. This is the magic that you're looking for. Honestly, one of the biggest breakthroughs that I think I ever had was just saying out loud that I wanted to be a spiritual leader. Like, oh my God, I was so ashamed when I said it. I said it to one person that I knew really well that I'd been working with for a long time. And we were doing this higher self exercise with each other. And she's sort of pulling it out of me. And I finally just said it because it was true, I knew deep down that's what I actually came here to be, but it was so scary to actually say it out loud. But also, life can't give us what we want if we don't know what we want. And what I'm learning is usually it's not that you don't know what you want. It's that you're afraid of what it might mean. And going back to the story I started to share, when I realized I was accommodating my partner, I realized I did actually have a bigger dream than what we were living. And we just weren't in alignment with that dream together. It wasn't bad, but I had other things that I wanted to do. And I wanted a partner that wanted to do those things with me. And it was very painful making that decision. That's why I hid from my desire. I was like, oh, if I can just lie to myself and pretend I don't want these things, then I won't have to potentially face making changes in my life. And it got right into the spot, somebody I really love. But I also knew I really wanted a partner that wanted to do this with me. And I also knew that it wasn't benefiting me or benefiting him to, for me to accommodate what I thought he wanted or was available for me to be hiding myself or holding myself back in some way. It was also not service or love, right? Yeah. And of course, it's not about leaving your partner or leaving your job, but sometimes it is. And oftentimes we hide from what we want because we're afraid of how it might land for others, or we're afraid of what it might mean in our life. But actually, sometimes nothing even really needs to change other than, again, just being clear about what it is that you want. Sometimes that's the only thing that actually needs to change. Sometimes that's the missing piece, right? So again, the one thing you can do to get closer to the result that you really want is to get clear about that desire and speak it. Find that spot where it's feels like it stretches you a little bit, but also is believable. That's where you want to work, right? Yeah, yeah. And I'm there with you. I'm still working on doing that. And again, like speaking more desire without leaving myself when I do it. Mhm. Especially the deepest ones, the ones that you don't tell anybody. Those are the good ones. Those are what we want to bring out. So, if you're in a stationary place and you can do this, I just kind of wanted to walk you through a sort of a guided exercise for a moment here. And of course, you can come back to this recording and make some notes for yourself. If you have time, you can just take a moment here and go ahead and close your eyes or grab a pen and paper real quick. Mhm. Yeah, and begin by closing your eyes and just landing in your body for a moment. And begin to visualize the life that you do want. You can start with what kind of home do you want? What do you want it to feel like? And as you're bringing it in to help you discern if, again, to help you discern if it feels, if it's mimicking what you think you're supposed to want or if it's what you truly want. A really quick way to test that is as you're tuning into the home, just on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you by this? Right? If you're a 10, great, you're clear. If you're a 3, there's something about this that isn't actually what you want, right? So it's important because sometimes we think we're supposed to just keep going for like the bigger house or the nicer things, and it's actually not what we want. We actually want a home that's like manageable, right? Or whatever, or simple. And sometimes we think we want something that's manageable and simple because we're afraid to ask for what we really want, which is a home in a beautiful place that's open and has lots of windows or whatever. Yeah. So once you feel clear about the home, let's look at relationships with your partner and your kids and family next. What do you want that to look and feel like? Get clear. Mhm. Actually, imagine yourself being in the kind of partnership you really want. Imagining your kids doing things that you're dreaming of for them. A good testing point again is to try it on for a long term. If this was the state of your life for a long time, would that feel good? On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about it? Right? And again, if you're lower, make some adjustments, play with it, test it. What if I imagine this? What would that be like? How does that feel? What if I imagine that? Now, how does it feel? Right? Mhm. Another place to play is what do you want your schedule or daily activities to be like? What do you want that to feel like? Oh, what if you just had time? Ah, and what's the right amount of time for you? What's too much free time? Does it feel good for long term? On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about it? And at least for today, last but not least, is what kind of work do you want to be doing in the world? What actually makes you excited? And here again, just doing your best to be honest with yourself and trying a few different things on. because maybe the thing you thought you wanted, when you actually imagine it over a long period of time, you know, is what you think you're supposed to be like to get what you want, but it's not actually the thing that you want. Mhm. And imagine doing it long term. How does that feel? Does that feel good? Scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you? Yeah. And keep coming back to that. And just to bring us to a close for today, again, this is a practice. This is one really powerful thing that you can do for yourself to move you closer to your goal or your dream, getting clear about your desire and also sharing that desire. And what I find is helpful here is to, um, do it in little baby steps. If you're just practicing this, actually saying what you want, start with stuff that's less triggering than some of the bigger things, right? I was working with my partner on, saying what I want in the bedroom, in intimacy, which was a triggering place. That's what I wanted, is to be able to say it and not abandon myself, right after I say it. Um, and when I started to work on that, I was noticing that I oftentimes wouldn't even say what I actually wanted for lunch. I'd sort of just agree to wherever he wanted to go, and then be mad at him about for it, which I caught it. It's okay. We do it. We're human. It's okay. But it was like, dang, like, how am I going to be able to say this in the most intimate space if I can't even say what I want to have for lunch? So that's where I started the practice, is actually, this is what I want. And again, remembering it's not about getting what you want, it's about saying what you want that matters. So if there's anything you can do for yourself to move you closer to your goal, that's the one. I'd love to hear more about what you're dreaming and you are desiring. Send me a DM or an email. You can drop into our Facebook group, Leading with Spirit, as well, and we can have a conversation there. Thanks so much for joining me today. See you next time. Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about Shaman School and growing your spiritual business on our website, HoltonHealingArts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. And the question is, what are some techniques to better visualize while journeying? So one thing I want to say before I jump into a couple of pieces here is that there are more ways to get information in journeying than just visually. So actually, a lot of us journey with our body. So you'll actually feel in your body the messages that are coming through, or spirit might actually show you in your body how to hold something or how to move something. Also, a lot of us journey by hearing messages. So you might have words either that appear before you or that sound like they're sort of being narrated, or even just sort of thrown into your awareness. So you can also journey by hearing the messages. So just keeping that in mind, and that there's actually not one way that is more powerful or better for getting information than another. And of course, a lot of us like to focus on the visuals because it's fun and interesting, and it feels like it is the way it's supposed to be done. Anyway, so if you do want to work on your visuals, a good practice to start is to actually say what you're seeing or sensing out loud. So you might even actually put a recorder on while you're journeying. And what I encourage is just trying to do sort of a stream of consciousness. You don't have to like describe or make specific sentences, just let all the words flow that are coming through around what it is that you are seeing and sensing. And it might not make sense while you're actually saying it, but what we want to get practice at is just say what you're sensing. And when you do this, your mind actually usually doesn't have time to fill the gap between what you're sensing and then thinking about what you're sensing. And that's where a lot of us get stuck. That's sort of this like in between place where we actually get information, where we get an awareness, and then we think about what we got. And that's where we actually diminish it or talk ourselves out of it or start to question if it was true or not, or if we made it up, or all of the doubts that we bring in to diminish our own knowing. So a workaround, again, is where you normally would pause and try to discern or dissect what was true. Actually, just talking out the full experience will skip that whole step. And then you can go back and listen to your recording and see what messages come through. Also, when you're saying it out loud, it will help you actually begin to bring in the visuals more clearly. So what you might actually do is sense that there's green grass, but not see it. And then when you start to describe how it feels or what you're sensing about it, the visuals will come in more clearly. And then that helps you get better in general at not overriding what you see with your doubt. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.